home of the Emperor's palace, heart of the Imperium, the brightest light in the galaxy. It sickens me. The hubris, the lies, the oppression. No matter. The shadow approaches. The Star Children shall have their throne.
Boom! A fantastic new battle box, Shadowthrone. Eddie, what do we know?
So this is pretty exciting for a whole bunch of reasons. So I think if we talk a little bit about the box set first. So this is a box set which contains Genestealer Cults and Adeptus Custodes and the Sisters of Silence. It's a battle box, so you've got two armies facing off against each other. One of the things that's particularly exciting about this from a narrative perspective is this is set on Holy Terror itself.
There's something rotten going on at the core of the Imperium.
There is. I mean, many would say that that's been the case for a long time, but this is definitely one of the worst thing that's happened to Terror in quite some time. So a Genestealer Cult has weeded its tendrils into the heart of the Imperium. So beneath the palace, it's the Shadowthrone is kind of alluding to that. There is a kind of secondary cult that's starting to rise up, and with uncharacteristic swiftness, the Adeptus Custodes have decided that that's not really a thing that's okay, because a Genestealer Cult underneath the palace is bad for a whole bunch of reasons, not least of which would be that, you know, it's going to call in a hive fleet if it's not left untreated for too long.
Yep.
So they send their elite golden warriors down. You know things are serious when you send in the Adeptus Custodes, and I think they uncover a hornet's nest. You know, when you lift up a rock and underneath it, there's all sorts of horrible grubs and horrible
it's
things.
better not to look.
Yeah.
Oh, here's the contents laid out. It looks great.
Yeah, so lots of the miniatures in here we've seen before, but obviously it's great to get them all in a battle box, and there's some stunning miniatures in there. And eagle-eyed amongst you who are familiar with the ranges already will spot two new miniatures. So there is an Adeptus Custodes Blade Champion.
Looks really nice. A very active pose for an Adeptus Custodes model as well.
Yeah, it definitely is. So one of the things that's kind of archetypal of the wider Custodes range is that lots of them are in quite kind of stoic poses, so they're all standing still, kind of on guard, kind of ready to take a charge. This guy is sort of the opposite, so he is definitely mid-charge, and this guy's thing basically is that he seeks out enemy leaders to behead with that enormous double-handed greatsword. And this guy's Adeptus Custodes size, so that is a hefty sword. That is probably, you know, about the size of a man, and probably weighs about 3 times as much. And he's got that kind of really cool, slightly lighter armour perhaps than some of the other Custodes, but looks similar to what you see with the Custodes jet bikes, that kind of style helmet, but very ornate, as you'd imagine from a Custodes character. I think a great opportunity for painters to show off their skills.
So I was looking into this a little bit before we went live, and the Blade Champion sits slightly below the Shield Captains in terms of rank, so think of them as your sort of number 2 leader in a large army, or number 1 leader in like a smaller strike force, maybe a strike force sent down into the bowels of Terror to root out a burgeoning Genestealer Cult.
Yeah, a little bit like your I suppose company champion-esque sort of character, but obviously every single Custodes that exists, regardless of rank, is a kind of unparalleled hero across the Imperium, the equal of, you know, 100 mortals or even multiple Chaos Space Marines or enemy elite warriors. So this guy he's pretty special. Some lovely little touches on the miniature as well. You can see he's got double-headed eagle pommel on his sword there, which is pretty cool. You've got all the kind of icons of Holy Terror. There's a lot of eagles on this guy. If you like eagles, you know,
a lot of people
forget
have said,
about it.
a bit like a lieutenant. Yeah, that is not wasted on me either. I mean, but there are lots of ranks sort of sit beneath captain, so you don't have to be too picky. I noticed the Blade Champion wasn't the only new thing in this
Not.
set.
So I'm particularly excited about this one. I am a Genestealer Cult fan. I've got a fairly hefty cult army at home. This is a Adeptus Saboteur, so a new character for the Genestealer Cult, and kind of leading into that. Sits really nicely alongside the rest of your cult, in the sense that this is a character who has basically planted their explosives across the entirety of the battlefield, and ready for the battle to come. She knew it was coming, and as soon as the battle is joined, she sets off her various different mining charges and explosives that are positioned all over the battlefield. So enemy units kind of find themselves walking into booby-trapped terrain, or bombs are planted underneath tanks. Enemy infantry find themselves kind of in ruins that are kind of collapsing on them. So in game terms, the way that manifests is she basically has a ranged attack, because the whole battlefield is covered in explosives before anyone even starts.
Sounds so fun.
Yeah, so she goes, you over there, you don't know this, but actually you're standing on a bomb, and then she plunges the little thing and the thing explodes. So a really interesting character in the way that she interacts with the rest of the Genestealer army, giving you some kind of hefty range firepower. And she's also got like loads of grenades and bombs and stuff. So if you get really close, she can kind of chuck
I like the whole stick of dynamite and then the grenade on the other side. It's really nice. The chat showing a lot of love for the sort of alternate head, which is one of the really lovely things about this model as well.
Yeah, so one of the cool things about Genestealer Cults is you can kind of, I suppose, lean into how alien you want them to look. So you can definitely do a Genestealer army where, if you didn't look too closely, you'd be forgiven for thinking they were just innocent Imperial miners with little goggles and stuff, and maybe just the odd extra arm.
As long as you keep that third
arm, as you don't look,
behind
as long as you put that under the cloak, you'd be alright. Or if you want to have like a really alien sort of look, you can go for the alternate head, which has the much more prominent ridges, and also that kind of burn damage. Would look like maybe
too close to one of her booby traps.
Yeah, maybe like in training she wasn't quite as careful as she is now. But a lovely model. Not shown on this image, but she does also come with like a little extra explosive
we saw that
icon.
in the group shot a minute ago.
On the back as well, she's got like mining cord and all sorts of stuff. So a great miniature, and actually, but in game terms, if you're a Genestealer Cult player, gives you some kind of reach out and do some serious damage at range, which is one of the things potentially you struggle with currently.
Nice. Turbo Otter is celebrating Warhammer Day by being happy for his Genestealer Cult and Custodes, playing friends, and also doing some laundry. Whatever it takes to
that's cool.
to keep things going.
Just waiting for the Day of Ascension. It's all good.
And Tarascon says, why is today Warhammer Day? Because we decided it would be neat if there was a day for Warhammer Day.
Why is any day any day?
I think the first one was around the time that we announced the new logo for Warhammer.
It was, and we had so much fun, we thought we'd do it again every year.
If you've got a good thing, why not do more of it? Speaking of which, perhaps it's worth pointing out that around the time of Shadowthrone, there's also going to be a new Adeptus Custodes Codex for Warhammer 40,000.
Yeah, so this is a really exciting codex for Adeptus Custodes fans. It does a whole bunch of stuff that Custodes fans will have been looking forward to. So there's a few key things that are worth knowing about this. So one of them is, as you can see from the cover and the image there, the Sisters of Silence have joined the Custodes full time. So as we joined them at the start of the Indomitus Crusade, the Sisters of Silence were kind of a scattered sisterhood across the galaxy. Nobody really knew how many there were. They certainly weren't organised in the way that they were during the time of the Horus Heresy, but they've been recombined. The sisterhoods have been kind of put together back under the leadership of the Adeptus Custodes. The talons of the Emperor have been reforged effectively, and you can now fit in your Sisters of Silence force alongside your Custodes, and all the kind of synergies across the army work. And there's some extra kind of cool stratagems and stuff where you can have the two forces fighting alongside each other, and they sort of become greater than the sum of their parts, just as they were always intended to be. So that's pretty cool.
It is. Big shout out to the cover as well, because you've got that looks like Trajan Valores to me. Stonkingly great Custodes hero with an axe big enough to behead all of you.
Yeah, so, pretty genomalous looking axe there. I think it might just be a regular shield captain.
It could be a shield captain.
You can decide. You can decide.
In my mind, until what I'll do is go and find the artist and ask them. But not today.
So there's a few other things worth calling out about this. That I think. One of the other things that's really cool is that at the moment, if you take a shield host of Custodes, you get a few extra bonuses. So you get like some warlord traits and a stratagem or something. What this book does is it really differentiates the difference between the shield hosts of the Custodes. So if you take you paint your Custodes different colours, basically they get different rules in the same way that you would if you had a Space Marine chapter or an Eldari Craft World or a Drukhari different force or a different Tau Sept or whatever it's going to be.
It's pretty exciting if you have gone to the trouble of painting your Custodes force in a different colour scheme to be rewarded with the rules. That's nice.
Yeah, so they now play differently. So you've got much more options, and it's nice as well because you don't have to go too far back before the Adeptus Custodes weren't even part of Warhammer 40,000, and now they really feel, thanks to this codex, like a fully fleshed out army with Sisters of Silence in the list as well. They've got loads of options to play with, and you've got loads of different ways that you can play them. You can have like a very defensive force or a very aggressive force, and some of the different shield hosts lead into that, which is pretty cool.
People have asked the question: could you field just Sisters of Silence if you wanted to?
So you probably could, but I think you'd be limiting yourself a little. One of the things that you do have in the Codex is a HQ choice for Sisters of Silence. So you can do an entire Sisters of Silence army. I don't know how effective it would be on the battlefield, but if you just really super love Sisters of Silence, you could probably find a way.
And I think, to be fair, that in many ways reflects the law, which is they're a force multiplier for the other Imperial forces, rather than a discrete unit that goes off and fights.
It would be rare to see them on their own. Even in the time of the Horus Heresy, they were very much kind of protected and fought alongside other forces. A kind of specialist brought in if they had to go up against a particularly ruinous enemy psycho force or something.
Well, somebody's just pointing out you might be able to make a great Bastion conversion from the Stormcast range.
I think you definitely could. There's a lot of big, shiny, cool golden people that you could mix and match were you so inclined.
Very good. And of course, the Adeptus Custodes are not alone. They are joined by the Genestealer Cults with their new codex, and quite frankly, some of the creepiest cover art of all time.
It's super, super creepy cover art. If anyone was kind of looking at the Genestealers, being like, oh, they seem like a nice bunch to kind of join for the uprising. One look at that codex cover goes, you know what? I think I'm going to stick with my current oppressors. Thanks very much. But a really exciting codex for Genestealer Cults. I think worth saying. Genestealer Cults have been one of those armies that maybe hasn't shone in this edition of Warhammer 40,000 so far, so a lot of the things that are current challenges to them that are addressed to some extent in this book. So there's a whole bunch of things that are pretty cool. One of the things that's quite cool is, obviously, you've got the new Reductus Saboteur, but there's a lot of ways to make a Genestealer army very effective as a shooting force. So there's some rules about if you can capture enemy units, crossfire between two of your units, one that starts on the battlefield, one that pops up behind them, you can get loads of bonuses, so it's quite possible to do a really scary Genestealer Cult shooting army thanks to this codex. And one of the other things that's addressed is the Genestealer Cult army, I know, is very command point intensive, so you need a lot of command points to make it work. You need to kind of pop out onto the ground and do stuff like that. And some of those abilities now become ones that you pay for with points or power level. So effectively, if it's a kind of pre-game thing, you can kind of, during your planning, as the uprising is getting ready, you can kind of go, I'm going to pay points or pay power level to put these units under the ground, or to prepare them, or to have them better equipped with certain types of weapons. And your stratagems become much more about things that are reactive in game. So it gives you loads more options to play with the Genestealer Cults without having to run out of command points by about turn 2, which is certainly what happened to me currently when I play with my army. So I'm looking forward to playing with this codex.
It's nice, and in some ways, it's nice for your opponent too, because you're going to signpost some of the weirdness that you might be getting up to, which I think could lead for a satisfying game for both sides, I think.
Yeah, so they might know, for example, that you've paid points to put a Genestealer unit underground in a pipe sewer work somewhere, rather than it being a stratagem thing. So it's a very different codex. And like a lot of the other codexes we've seen for this edition of 40k, you've got a lot of the weapons and things have changed. There's a keyword now for mining weapons, so a lot of your stratagems kind of riff off that in different ways, and you can do some ruinously good damage